Hello everyone and welcome back to the video. Now a lot of my content is geared towards the competitive and like the high level stuff, but I wanted to kind of kick back and make a video for my newer players. Any player that is just new to the game, looking to kind of learn it and just doesn't really know where to start. I'm going to give you guys my 5 best civilizations for new players looking to increase their knowledge of the game and increase their skills. And I think that these 5 civs all teach you certain things and make the game a lot more digestible for you to learn, instead of just trying to learn all the civs at once or trying to pick up some of the civilizations that are a lot more complicated in nature. So let's hop into it, and this is just something that you can refer to if you're trying to get into the game and you're just new to Age of Empires 2. At number 5, we've got a civilization that it almost feels like can do it all. We've got the Magyars. Magyars are a civilization that really thrives off of all the options that they have, and they've got a mix of power units and a mix of options that they can do, which I think is a very unique characteristic to the civilization. It can do really strong knights and scout rushes. It has amazing archer line with the arbalest. It has great cav archers in late game, just absolutely terrorizing a lot of other civilizations with those 8 range and high damage cav archers with the unique tech. They also don't really have anything too weird about them. There's nothing that is like, if you learn the Magyars, you're not going to be able to do this and this. No, nothing weird about them, nothing too unique. It's more or less a standard civilization that has a ton of different options, and it's very easy to understand the strength of the civilization and what to aim for in your composition, which is simply Hussar or Magyar Hussar, Paladin, or Heavy Cav Archer for that late game kind of style. But of course, plenty of options available. It is a little bit weak in the siege department, so if you're looking for a strong siege civ, definitely probably stay away from Magyars. Next up, we've got the Byzantine. Now, Byzantine is a civilization that once again has a lot of options, but it does it in a very unique way. Byzantines gives you a lot of strength towards counter units. And in my opinion, one of the most important things to learn as a newer player is simply how counter units work. And I think that while playing Byzantines can be very complicated at higher levels, at lower levels it's pretty simple. If you see your opponent making a certain type of unit, try to make a counter unit that Byzantines also gets a discount on, so you get kind of a double value situation where you're making a counter unit and you're also saving resources on it, so it's a lot easier to make those transitions. And in my opinion, it's just a great way to learn the game, by just learning how to make counter units and how to rely on different units as the game goes on. While it does get more complicated from there, it's a really good place to start with the Byzantines, and they do it extremely well. They also have very good defensive structures and high HP on their buildings, so you're going to be able to get a lot of time when defending your base. Alright, next up, a lot of people are going to hate me for this, but I just have to put Goths at number 3. And the reason for Goths at number 3 is that I just feel like their game plan is just so straightforward and so simple. And infantry seems to be a really big fan favorite amongst newer players. You guys love to play with infantry because it feels like there's almost no counter to a lot of those infantry units. And the reason why I like Goths for newer players is that it just lets them understand the benefits of developing your economy and why you actually need to kind of take your time in certain cases to get to those later stages where you can then flood your opponent. So I think it really teaches you the strength of setting up your economy and developing into the game. And the Goth snowball is very hard to stop at lower levels. It's a civilization that is really kind of weak at the higher levels, but in lower levels, it's something that a lot of players struggle to play into. And that's why I definitely recommend it if you're a newer player and likes to play with infantry units. It is a little bit more of a one-trick kind of civilization. They don't have the most amount of options, but again, if you're looking for a simple, straightforward one, Goth is your go-to when it comes to that. Next up, we've got the Britons up at number 2. Now, Britons is very similar to the Goths, guys. They're all about the archers, and they're very one-trick oriented around the archers. It's not to say that they don't have any other option. They actually have a very solid infantry line in general, but when it comes to like what they want to do, it's a very straightforward game plan. I think that could be great for newer players who like to play with archers and want to make the most out of that. So you've got your crossbowmen that are very good, have extra range, the longbowmen, which is a very solid late game unit with a ton of range, and then you also have some infantry that you can complement the archers with, like champions or halberdiers based on the situation. Not the strongest cavalry, but definitely a decent amount of siege options as well. So before I show off the number 1 civ I would recommend to newer players, I'm going to first show off some honorable mentions that are definitely very valid civilizations to start out with, but that are just a bit more low-key than some of the other ones on this list that are much more straightforward. So starting off, we've got the Berbers for honorable mentions. It's a really solid civilization. I mean, there's nothing really wrong with it. It's actually a very easy civilization to play in terms of the options that they can go for. They're pretty fun because they have really strong options in all stages of the game, and the units that they have as strengths are quite easy to play with. It's just like mobile cavalry units, cavalry archer with a camel archer, which is all great stuff for newer players. The only thing I will say is that they have the Genitor, which is very unique to them, which could throw off new players, but at the same time, it could be cool to have a unique unit attached to the civilization that's not just the one you have in the castle. The next one I would say for newer players that they can be pretty straightforward as well is I would say the Saracens. Now Saracens are one of those civilizations where they can do just about anything. Like they're actually really flexible. The one thing I will say with Saracens though is that the archers breaking into walls might be something that they get too used to, or they get too used to abusing the market. However, like I said, Saracens, especially for newer players guys, they do have a lot of tools that will help you out, like the market, which can be abused, but it's a nice little bonus when you're just starting out to help balance out your resources. And just one more honorable mentions for you guys is the Teutons. Now, the Teutons, they're usually the biggest weakness is the fact that they're very slow, but I think that for newer players, this is actually a good thing. And what I would say is that new players tend to have a lot of trouble countering infantry or just halberdier in general. So I think Teutons gives you that nice mix of an option to go paladin, but then if your opponent goes halberdier, you can easily counter them with either halberds of your own because you got the stronger armor, or just champions, and even Teutonic Knights can come out in those slower paced games, like I said. Not a bad option at all. So those are my 3 honorable mentions, but of course, without further ado, let's hop into the number 1 civ I would recommend to new players. Alright, lastly at number 1 guys, we've got the Franks. In my opinion, the just best civilization for anyone who's learning the game. It's the most simple, straightforward civilization you can ever ask for. It has great cavalry, which in my opinion is one of the best units to make use of when learning the game, and then also has really good options to counter halberdier, which is obviously the biggest weakness of paladin, really the powerhouse of Franks at lower levels. Your game plan should be to go knights as much as possible and then eventually work your way to paladin, and if your opponent gets halberdier, well then you can make a switch into the throwing axeman, which is a very easy unit to use. Doesn't need any upgrades or like range or like ballistics, anything crazy like that. And the civ has also cheaper castles, which is really good at lower levels to kind of secure your base and secure the map. So just as a whole, I just feel like Franks is simply the best option to pick up if you like cavalry and if you are a newer player that needs something a little bit more simple. But again guys, just to recap, all of these civilizations are very straightforward and very easy to understand. Based on whatever you enjoy playing and whatever you think that you're good at, kind of pick one of these: infantry, archer, cav. You gotta think about what you want to do and then simply pick that civ that fits into that style. And I just want to end this video with one note guys. If you want to play any other civ or like pick something a little bit more unique, go for it. At the end of the day, it's important to have fun when you're playing this game and just enjoy it. So pick a civilization that you enjoy playing and that you like to play, and then just practice a lot more of that civilization. And just one big advice, kind of a bonus advice at the end of this video, is just stick to just a few civs at first if you're trying to get better. If you're trying to have fun, play whatever you want, that's totally fine. If you're just trying to get better and learn the game, stick to a few civilizations. It's going to make that process a lot easier, and then you can always expand to other civilizations as time goes on. Thanks for watching the video. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.